Welcome back to Tar Heel Illustrated. I am Bryant Balcom. He is publisher Andrew Jones from Purcell Pavilion in South Bend, Indiana. We're here for another edition of Three Things following North Carolina's 74-73 win over Notre Dame. One that did not seem like it was going to end in the favor of the Tar Heels. And then enter Ian Jackson from the get-go. But he was really kind of the rock that UNC needed throughout the course of the game with a career-high 27 points, 11 of 18 shooting, led UNC in field goal attempts, and he's just been what UNC needed during these last couple games and really stepped up as a freshman.
Ian's that guy. Now, there are prongs to his game that need a lot of work, and that will happen over time. If there's anything we've learned in covering Ian going back to his high school days and when he committed, and even before he committed, is that hard work is not an issue with Ian Jackson, because he was a bad three-point shooter 2 years ago in high school. And it was a topic of conversation with his coach all the time. And I think I mentioned this on one of these videos here recently as well. And he kept working and working and working. And even coming into this season, when I would talk with David Sisk about this team, there was a lot of uncertainty if Ian was going to even be a decent perimeter shooter. He's proven to be a pretty good perimeter shooter, and certainly good enough that he's a three-level scorer, and teams defend him that way. And when they go out and they honor the three, they have to have at least four other eyeballs on him, because someone's going to have to help when he gets by the defender. So he causes a lot of trouble for opposing teams. And I asked him today about teammates starting to get comfortable with Ian playing the way he does, because I also asked Hubert about him. And what I asked Hubert was, with Ian's wiring as a player, there's some stuff you just kind of have to live with in order to get the whole bag. And Hubert said, absolutely. Ian's a get it and go guy, and you can't hold back any aspects of his game because it's all part of the package. You're going to have to live with certain things. It's like a great power hitter who strikes out a lot. You got to live with that. Reggie Jackson has the most strikeouts in history, but guess what? First ballot Hall of Famer, because he Mr. October and everything else. So you have to live with that with Ian. It's going to be some turnover. It's going to be some head-scratching shots. Hubert did say Ian attempted 2 step-back threes today. He told him he should have been aggressive and gone to the rim. So you've got all that with Ian. And I think an important thing, we saw it today, because when he's gone into high-volume score mode, oftentimes it looks like a guy who's sort of ball-hogging some and just doing his own thing. I thought the guys played off him better today when he was doing that. So I asked him, going back to what I started saying a second ago, do you sense that your teammates are feeling your game better, playing off your game better? And he said yes. And that's a really important thing, because those 22, 23, 24-point games today turned into 27. And quite frankly, I think that he could have gone for more. He's creeping into a territory as a guy who could just get to the damn rim, and he gets shots off. And he's someone that if he really wanted to, if he was in a situation where he said, you know what, I'm going for 40 tonight, he could probably get you 40. Not sure your team would win the game. And I thought that was another area where he showed some poise tonight, because he only attempted 18 shots. He could have attempted more. There were some pass-offs. There were some passing cuts. I thought he did a pretty good job as a deke in some sense. So this was a really important performance for him with his teammates, because they're going to have to ride him. People may want RJ to be the leading scorer every game, and they may want points to come from other guys, Seth, when he comes back. The reality is, this is why Ian's here. He's a first-round NBA pick in 6 months, so you got to let him work and do his thing. It is painful as it is to watch sometimes, because there are a lot of missing prongs. But the reality that I saw today, what really hit me today, led to my question to Hubert and my question to Ian. And that's him, and it's okay if it doesn't screw up other things. And I don't think it screwed up anything today. He went for 27. He's the first freshman in Carolina history to score 23 or more points in 4 consecutive games. First one ever. I asked him, when I brought that up, he started smiling. I said, I'm not sure you even know, because a lot of the times these kids don't know stats. They don't know things like that, especially when they come out and talk to us in the hallway right outside the locker room. And so I started asking him the question, and look at the video. That's the biggest grin I've seen from him, because I don't know how much he likes being interviewed. And sometimes he's young. I'm getting to know him, and it's a little challenge getting certain things out of him because he likes to say, "Look, it's my game. I'm in. I'm who I am." And he's right. He's got an incredible amount of confidence and self-assuredness. But when I said that, a huge smile. And I think there was a source of pride there. And I think that that's important because there are people who think that he plays for the name on the back of the jersey and not the front. And I thought this performance was a front of the jersey performance for him. And I thought the way he responded when I was asking him about that, yeah, he's got a history, but I said, look at all the other guys you're lumped in there with. And apparently he had said somebody like, hey, now the next guy's going to be compared to Ian Jackson. And there will be another guy at some point in this program's history. So I think that that's a really, really big thing. And he did it in a win. And let's be honest. He's gone for 23 plus in the last 4 games. They're 3-1. 2 of those games, they actually closed out UCLA in Madison Square Garden and here at Notre Dame. So for a lot of people who are looking for negatives, and we've certainly reported the hell out of negatives. I mean, I have mined that field till there's nothing left. I think it's important to note a positive from today, and there are multiple. Mm-hmm. This is one of them. And if you're going to ride that dude the rest of the way, I think today was a really good game to kind of put the saddle on him and say, okay, let's go.
Yep. And I mean, you mentioned he had 17 first half points. And you also talk about that kind of just player he was on the floor, and it looked like, more playing for the name on the front. There's, like you said, he was the reason UNC had a 12-point lead in the first half, and his dunk off the lob from RJ Davis put him up 11, and that in real time seemed to be like, almost more putting a cap on what had been a great start to the second half for UNC. And it was because of Ian Jackson. He was staring down another 20-point game, but that 11-point lead seemed to do the opposite. It was when things kind of started to fall apart for UNC, particularly on the defensive end. Notre Dame got to the foul line, Marcus Burton in particular, a lot during that stretch, and North Carolina fouled Notre Dame on 4 of its next 5 possessions after they went up 11 points.
Yeah, they were racing down the court going to this basket, right? No, it was that basket because that's the media section over there. And Ian pointed. He did this when he was running down the court. Like, lift it up. And RJ didn't see that, but he knew. He said Ian had said something about oop or something like that, and he did. And RJ said he caught some flack from his teammates about his wacky celebration after that. I thought at that moment that they were in position to put foot on throat. Mm-hmm. Our Notre Dame called timeout. It's an 11-point game. That was at 47-36, I think, right?
Yes.
47-36, 16 minutes left. The place was quiet, except the Carolina fans. They were pretty loud. There were a lot of Carolina fans here. And that was the moment in time where you say, okay, good Carolina teams, typical Carolina teams come into this place against this team. And Notre Dame's not as bad as people think, but they're not good.
Especially with Marcus Burton back.
Well, and with him back, absolutely. And I think he inspired them by coming in the game too. And they're going to win some games down the road with him once they get comfortable playing with him again. They were fairly competitive against some good teams without him. So they should be decent moving forward. And maybe this win will look better as the season goes on. However, the timeout's called by Notre Dame. It's an 11-point game. And I'm thinking, okay, this is the point in time where a lot of these Carolina teams either come here or go wherever on the road against clubs they should handle. And they put foot on throat and they push the lead to 18 or 20. And then it's a matter of, the game clock running the rest of the way. This team's not quite at that point. I'm not sure they'll ever really be at that point against decent teams, especially on the road, because they lack in some areas. However, 12-0 run by Notre Dame. And I'm thinking, well, here we go again. We're going to have to write the same crap, same old stuff. We've got to find ways to ask creative questions, that kind of thing. And then they kind of went back and forth, played tug of war for a while. And I thought that they responded okay to that. They didn't beat them. They didn't let that run beat them. What's interesting is they haven't let runs beat them earlier, but they were in the first half. Mm-hmm. This one was in the second half, and it erased what was a big second half lead for the Tar Heels, a rare place for them to be in. And they responded well enough that they ended up getting the win. You can say what you want about how they got the win, about Elliot's shot and the foul and all that stuff. It's all part of the game, man. That jump shot could have come an hour earlier. And could have been the difference then. We just wouldn't have applied it as being the difference. It came when it came and he got it. So I thought that them being able to handle that and show some maturity. And RJ showed a lot of leadership out there today. Forget his points, man. He had 7 assists. I thought that he defended really well at times.
One turnover, too.
Just one turnover. And he had an assist, and I'm sidebarring that crazy here. He had an assist to Ian. I guess it was over here because I'm turned around. He had an assist to Ian in the first half for a dunk, and RJ clapped the entire way back up the court defensively. And this is a guy who is not putting up the numbers he put up last year from a point standpoint, but he wants to win. And when I mentioned, I think I talked to Jacob after the Louisville game, and I mentioned RJ, got 8-6, RJ. And just the look on his face was of disgust. Mm-hmm. So he wants to win. He became the second all-time leading scorer tonight. And that's overshadowed, and that's fine. But he doesn't want to be a second all-time leading scorer in a team that doesn't make the tournament twice and gets booted in the first round another time. He wants his team to get going. He wants to win. His legacy is going to be enhanced right now by wins more than points because he's already set as far as points go. He already has an ACC Player of the Year. So I thought he showed leadership out there, and that was part of what got them through that period. I also thought there were some different guys stepping up and making plays. Jay Wood hits a 3. He missed a dunk earlier. He cocks that thing back. Just go up with 2 hands and make the thing go through. He hits a 3. Drake Powell sits on the bench for 11 minutes. Or 9 minutes, comes off the bench, 15 seconds later, hits a 3. Jalen Washington, career high 5 block shots. Mm-hmm. There was a shot clock violation. I'm trying to think of when it happened in the game. It may have actually been the first half.
Yeah, when you had 2 blocks in one possession.
Yeah, well, there was a shot clock violation where Ian had his best defensive sequence of the year. Where he didn't let the guy go baseline. He forced him into the middle, and he was botting him, and he was straight up. And it took so much time off the clock. The shot went up, and Jalen came over and blocked it. So you got a shot clock violation with a blocked shot right there. I thought that was Jalen Washington's total buy-in today that you saw. There were some mistakes. There were some ugly situations, but he did some nice stuff for him. And in that sequence in the second half, he had a roll to the rim. Elliot dropped a beautiful dime to him, and he dunked. So they were getting stuff from other guys. They weren't relying on Ian to take a ton of shots, which is why he only had 18 shots in the game. He had 25 or something the other night. So 24, whatever it was. So I think that they didn't lose themselves. They didn't detach from one another. They stayed kind of connected. And I think RJ was a big part of that. I thought for the first time this year, I saw discernible leadership on the floor in a situation like that. It got them through, and it got them in position to make a game-winning play, which they did.
And you look back, and like you said, there are a lot of guys who contributed in ways that, they're not by putting up 15 and 10, but little ways that led to the win. One thing that's going to go unnoticed, UNC was down 3. Notre Dame had the ball, and Jalen Washington forced a turnover from Marcus Burton. If he doesn't do that, there's a chance that UNC goes down 2 possessions, doesn't even get a chance to have a game tying or what eventually ended up being a game winning shot from Elliot Cadeau. They just made plays when they needed to, and we've kind of seen them not finish, particularly even at Louisville most recently. When they've been in close games, when it comes to that like 4 or so minute mark, things have kind of gone south at times, and it just didn't. Notre Dame made plays, but UNC finished 4 of its last 5 from the floor. They made shots.
Yep.
And then the one shot, of course, Elliot Cadeau stepped up when he needed to most. And I mentioned it to you before we began talking, and it was eerily similar to the shot he had against Kansas to tie the game. Similar situation, and one that came up short, almost the exact same spot on the floor.
Yeah, before I go on to Elliot, very quickly, it's a great point about J-Wash. I asked him about the rotating defensively and helping out and being more of a second presence in the lane when someone's getting beat off the dribble or whatever it is. He said that was a major point of emphasis after Louisville because they were awful at it against Louisville. Mm-hmm. Awful. They were much better at it today. And that play you're talking about with Burton, J-Wash stayed on him. Burton he's down there with a tree. It's not often this year we've been able to look at Jalen Washington and say in a moment on the court, he was a tree and affected a game the way a big should. And he did that time, and it was a huge turnover. As far as Elliot Cadeau, I asked him about the shot, and he said it was a lot like the Kansas shot. He said, and I'm paraphrasing, I took a lot of crap for that. I said, what do you mean? Like because you took it or because you missed it? And he's like, missed the shot and maybe wasn't the guy to take it. So when he had the ball and the time's winding down and they're trying to run a play, they're running a play for RJ.
Mm-hmm.
RJ's going down lane, is going to pop out, come out, and Elliot's going to dish him the ball, and RJ's going to shoot. I thought that Elliot showed tremendous composure. And here's a guy who hasn't always shown composure this year because he's been battling through all kinds of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
He showed a lot of composure. He didn't force anything. And he got, I think it was Tay Davis on him, and he was able to sort of freeze him in his track some and launch the three and got fouled. And then he had the mental strength. Roy Williams used to talk about you got to have the toughness to make big shots. And you got to have the toughness to make big free throws. And Elliot had the toughness to make that shot, and then really had the toughness to make that free throw. Because it's funny, Hubert didn't even know that there was a foul called. And the ref came over. He was going to call timeout to set up the defense. And so they saved him a timeout there. He waited till obviously after the made free throw. But he said the refs came over and said, we're going to the free throw line. He's like, who was fouled? And it was Elliot. And he made the free throw, and he's not a great free throw shooter. So he also scored a layup with 22 seconds left. It was a 3-point game?
Cut it to 1 point.
Cut to one, yeah. So, and that was a move where he got points to apply pressure because they needed, it was a multiple possession game at the time, so they needed to get the ball back. So score then and get the ball back. And I thought it was a smart move. It was a good drive. And then he hit the shot, and he ended up with 10 points. He was the only other Tar Heel in double figures. And Jalen Washington said that he thinks that Elliot being the guy to make that play is huge for this team. They needed someone to. Mm-hmm. I asked Hubert, I said, you've been in these situations so much, and then you need someone to make a play. And Hubert's nodding like, yeah. And they hadn't always been that. Elliot made that play. And a guy who has struggled a lot and played below expectations probably more than anybody on the team. And part of that's because expectations are extremely high. He has played well at times, but he'll admit that he hasn't played well at times. For him to hit that shot and give them a win here and have them close a game out, in which they don't do that very often, and then hit the free throw, I think that's huge for this team. I think it's huge for him. I know a lot of people are saying they never should have been in that situation to begin with. They should have blown out Notre Dame. I don't agree. I picked Carolina to win by 3. I think it was 72-69 was my pick. And the reason is because I thought it would be a game kind of like it was, and I think Notre Dame's better than a lot of other people do, and I don't think Carolina's that good yet. They can be good, but I don't think they're that good yet. So to be able to do that when Shrewsbury's hitting big threes and Alcoro, whatever his name is, whatever his name is hitting some threes. I mean, Notre Dame was hitting some pressure shots, forcing Carolina to continue playing. Notre Dame didn't hand them the game. Carolina stole it. And they stole it because Elliot made a play at the end, and this was a relieved team. I asked RJ, I said, all wins are precious, but some are a little more precious than others. How much more precious is this than some of the other wins? And he was just beaming and said, absolutely. They needed this big time. Even Hubert said, we needed this. The guys in that room needed this because a loss would have been heart-wrenching for these guys. And then they got to come home and run out of the tunnel at 8-7 against SMU. And I think it's a 9:00 game on Tuesday with not a great crowd. There still may not be a great crowd there. So they needed this. They needed to stem the tide for a game. Now they need to win the next one. For them, it should be a series of one-game seasons right now to get themselves on track. And I do think what I said earlier about Ian, the acceptance that he's got to be the guy that just does his thing, and you just allow the whole bag on the court, some of the bad with the good. I think that's an important step forward for this team.
And I think you mentioned the bad coming with the good. Some of that bad is being a freshman, and the more he's in that kind of role that they want him to be that guy and to do what he did tonight, those mistakes you would think would become fewer and fewer. And also on the point about Elliot Cadeau, it seems like he's been in a lot of situations where UNC has relied on him to do something down the stretch. And just when it comes to guys like him or Ian Jackson or RJ, getting these wins in these situations is good for their confidence. And it's something that UNC needs to experience, especially after all these close losses they've had. And I think the most important thing you pointed out there was the fact that UNC won the game. I felt like when UNC won that game against UCLA, they made some plays, but UCLA also did themselves no favors with free throw shooting and things of that nature. And I think UNC really made the plays when it needed to down
win
the
this game. Yeah.
And that hasn't happened all.
Yeah, your Elliot or your Ian point, I'll follow up on that real quickly because it's a good point. I think it's what I said. The guy's getting comfortable with him. So often, certainly at Louisville, and for stretches against UCLA, they're just standing and watching. Like my dad used to call it, guys just standing around taking a picture. And during game, they were taking photographs of Ian. I thought there was less standing around. So Ian has some more options. And it's just learning to play off somebody. That's part of their growth, which is enhancing his growth. So we'll see if it moves forward. They're going to have a much tougher game Tuesday night. SMU is a lot better than people realize. And I think it would be a very big win for the Tar Heels to get it, no matter how it comes. And I think we're at a point in the season right now, just like I said with the 22 team, when they win that stretch where they had some ugly wins over BC and Virginia Tech and some of those teams, these guys just need to win games right now. Mm-hmm. Nothing is going to enhance their confidence and bring them together and loosen them up, because I think they play tight a lot. Nothing is going to positively shift them in the right direction in those respects more than just winning games. Winning ugly can give you a lot of confidence. And I don't think they won ugly tonight. I don't think it was a game that you want to put in the time capsule, because they had multiple defensive breakdowns. They had some ugly stretches offensively and some turnovers and a lot of fouls, like you pointed out. Another game in the second half where they foul a lot. But there were enough good things done by enough guys that this is something that Hubert can move forward and say, okay, here's a game film we're going to enjoy. And we're just going to look at the positive in this one, and let's take this and move it to the next one, and let's go do it again. And if they win the rest of their game 74-73 in wild fashion, I think they'll be quite happy.
I'd agree. And, you point out SMU being a tough test, and, of course, that is in Chapel Hill. And one important note that, could be for UNC be a big thing is they don't leave the state of North Carolina until January 28th when they play at Pitt. Yes. They have a home game against SMU at NC State, 2 home games against Cal and Stanford, and on the road at Wake Forest and at home against Boston College. So the chance to really rack up some wins on their home floor, and also even in the state, they're not traveling. It's kind of might be a little more comfortable to be
and sports
in your own
writers
bed before you play.
And sports writers are not traveling. The last 16 days I've been home for a full day without having to go anywhere, just 2 days. So I fly home tomorrow and then get to be home for a while. So sports writers like stretches like this too. Trust me.
Well, I mentioned that SMU's the next matchup. 9:00 tip should be a late one in the Smith Center on Tuesday, but another chance for UNC to start a winning streak, get consecutive wins over Power 5 opponents Power 4 opponents. Still not used to that, for the first time this season.
It's Power 5 in basketball because of the Big East.
Oh, you're right. So Power 4 in football, Power 5 in basketball. Yep. I'll mess that up again sometime. So forgive me.
Well, we're going to do a daily drop. We're going to record right after this. We'll run that Monday morning. So come make sure you look for that. I like doing these when I'm in the arenas at the stadiums. It also means that when I get home tomorrow, I don't have to go in my office and do a daily drop. So.
And you have a much better background than I do currently.
We're going to talk about Ian Jackson in the daily drop. You guys are going to like it. It is a better back. I like the backdrop in my office. It's pretty good.
Well, both of your backdrops are better than mine. So
this is true. We need to work on your backdrop game.
Well, we can talk about that later. But for now, I'm Brian Baucom. He's Andrew Jones, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks.